Hello, wonderful good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon. My name is Tobias Peterson. I'm Director of Dual Training and Education at the German-Philippine Chamber of Commerce. I will be your moderator and facilitator for today. Thank you very much for being here and for also giving us your time, and we're waiting your participation. Without further ado, I would pass the mic to our valued director, Sir Tristan Arwen Loveris. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Toby. Dear members, friends, partners, a good day to you all from the German Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Welcome to the third workshop in our series of wastewater compliance in the Philippines. This is now the wastewater technologies for the semicon and electronics sector. Policy on wastewater remains to be a relevant and public issue for the Philippines. Hence, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, DENR, imposed Administrative Order 2016-08, also known as the Water Quality Guidelines and General Effluent Standards of 2016. However, there have been issues on compliance, especially on the General Effluent Standards for selected parameters, as they are challenging to meet. Of course, we would like to assist companies in their compliance. Today, we are looking at the semiconductor and electronics industry, a key driver for economic growth and digitalization in our country. For many years, the electronics sector has consistently been the Philippines' top exporter, contributing around 9.8% to the GDP. In 2019, the electronics industry in the Philippines has reached $43.9 billion US. Despite of the COVID-19 pandemic, the electronics sector still amounted to $39.67 billion US, or 62% of the total Philippine exports in 2020. These numbers prove that electronics sector is one of the most important players in elevating Philippine exports.
Thank you very much, Sir Bobbitt. And with that, I would then have the pleasure of introducing our valued expert of today, Dr. Jürgen Wummel of Sachsen Wasser. Yes, Dr. Jürgen Wummel of Sachsen Wasser is he is the executive director of, like I said before, Sachsen Wasser GmbH, or short SAWA, with over 20 years of experience in the field of water and wastewater management, and he built on extensive expertise in subject matter. Dr. Wummel supports water and wastewater facilities in Germany, and at the same time, they have a consultancy service applying its operational or practical experience. The services they focus on in the areas of optimization of water utility operations, reducing water losses, and or improving capacity building. So with that, thank you very much for being here, Dr. Wummel, and the stage is yours for now.
Mr. Peterson, Mr. Loveris, thank you for this very kind introduction to start sustainable wastewater management. Wastewater in the electronic sector, that is somehow something which might surprise, because even though it appears as we do have much and enough water on Earth, water is still a very rare and precious commodity, and only a very small part of the Earth water reserves is available for human activities, and therefore we have to protect this water. But the growth of the world's population and industry has given rise to a constantly growing demand for water in proportion to the supply available, and this remains constant. And therefore it is necessary to minimize its consumption it is necessary also to return the water back to the environment with a minimum contamination load because of the limited capacity of self-purification, and therefore wastewater treatment processes are very important. From my point of view, there are at least two fundamental reasons for wastewater treatment. One is, of course, preventing pollution and thereby protecting the environment and protecting the public health by safeguarding waste supplies, preventing the spread of waterborne disease. When untreated industrial wastewater is discharged, it will contaminate the natural water body like rivers, lakes, seas, and it is absolutely necessary, therefore, to study the characteristics of the industrial wastewater to ensure its safe disposal. And as Mr. Loveris just described, especially the electronic sector, with up to 62% of the export, is a very important player in this industrial wastewater. And what does it describe, industrial wastewater? Industrial wastewater describes the process used for treating the wastewater that is produced by the industry as an undesirable product. And of course, industrial wastewater during the last century, huge amount of these industrial wastewater was discharged into river, lakes, and coastal areas. And the results, you might know them, are serious pollution problems, negative effects to the ecosystem and to the human life. Industrial wastewater treatment describes the process for treating the wastewater that is produced in the industry. And of course, there are a lot of indicators which describe the industrial wastewater. And for a complete treatment of wastewater produced by the industry, of course, there are different solutions. And these different solutions depends on the indicator, for example, named here, color, turbidity, pH, hardness, but also on the concentration, because wastewater solution for the electronic sector is nothing which can be just transferred from one company to the other. The companies are different, as shown in the first survey made by Mr. Peterson. PC and Semicons are different technologies. There are different kind of concentrations. If there is a low concentration, for example, for indirect cooling water, in this case, the industrial wastewater may be discharged even without any treatment. If there is a medium concentration, it might be necessary just to treat the wastewater on site before discharging it into the public sewage. And if there is a high concentration, there might be not only a further treatment, but there might be also solutions for recycling or disposed of solid waste, and especially the electronic sector. The electronic sector contains a very high load of cyanides, of toxic metals, and chemical oxidant demand. Actually, there are at least 4 different ways of how to treat the wastewater in the electronic sector. You can either discharge directly to a municipal treatment plant. You can, as some of you just mentioned, have a pre-treatment and discharge the pre-treated wastewater to a municipal treatment plant. You may have a complete treatment plan on site, or you stream discharges or land applications. This is always something which is in line with the whole process of production facilities and treatment system. Because wastewater management is a costly business, once the wastewater is produced and collected, then it has to be treated. The general overview within the metallic industry, within the electronic industry, that you have to follow these different stages to try to separate the polluted wastewater and to find solution for single wastewater components. Besides that, there is still sludge which is the result of the wastewater. There is, of course, criteria for wastewater selection. The necessary wastewater treatment for the EEE production, for the manufacturing of the electronic and electrical situation, depends on the quality, on the quantity of the wastewater, and on the technology. The technology which is being used for treating the wastewater should be reliable and should be manageable. And if it cannot be managed by the manufacturer by himself, he can just hand over the wastewater to the municipal wastewater treatment company or to a third party. All solutions within the wastewater treatment necessities in the EEE sector should be financially sustainable. And therefore, the reuse is very much important in this sector because quite a lot of the wastewater still contains material which can be reused and which are even very difficult to separate within the wastewater treatment process. Depending on the regulatory determinants, special conditions might be necessary to fulfill to make sure that everything is in line with the Philippines regulations written down in DOA. And if you compare these different solution methods, of course, none of the methods is something which is good for all products within the effluent. Everything has a different impact. Every solution, every technology has a different impact on the effects of renewal of the components within the wastewater treatment. Our activities for the wastewater treatment, which has to be done because there is a necessity written down in DOA 216.8 to create a compliance action plan. This action plan needs a description of the establishment, so the description of the company, a process production flow, the categorism of the wastewater, a solution of how to treat the wastewater. And to do so, the investment time, the resources, the capability is necessary. You have to evaluate the characteristic factors, consider alternatives, and bear in mind that wastewater treatment for the EE sector is costly and complex. And if you are doing it by yourself, by a pre-treatment operation, maintenance and management should be something you have to consider about.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wummel, for all the insights. On behalf of the German Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I would like to thank all of the participants and partner organizations for their valued contribution throughout the whole series of workshops.